Now to the familiar topic, at least for the past 6 months to a year here in this program, of measles. And if you thought the outbreak had just gone away because it hasn't been in the headlines as much in recent weeks, you should think again. It is now the worst outbreak in the U.S. in 27 years, more than 1,000 cases in 28 states for a disease thought to have been eliminated back in the year 2000. New York, it remains hardest hit, with nearly 600 cases in New York City, another 275 in Rockland County. That's a county north of the city, both home to large populations of Hasidic Jews where vaccination rates remain low. Now, that is in part to misinformation about the vaccines, including widely debunked claims that they are a cause of autism. Misinformation shared at public meetings like this one held in or near Hasidic communities. That's one reason why New York just became the 5th state to ban religious exemptions from vaccine requirements, and the only state in our region to do just that. Now, what may seem like a common sense step to try and rein in the outbreak, but as the bill ending the exemption was passed in Albany, anti-vaxxers burst into this display that you see here.
Families over pharma! Families over pharma!
So it's so much emotion involved in this subject. What we'd like to do is try to inject more fact and science into the conversation. And for that, we turn to Sharon Humiston. Sharon is professor of pediatrics at the University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Medicine, and she's just back from a 2-day conference on vaccinations held by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Thank you so much, Professor. I appreciate the time. Has this conversation changed from where we were 6 months ago, or are camps still so firmly entrenched in their own set of facts that for the anti-vaxxer movement, regardless of all the science and all the appeals and now even the involvement of state legislators, it really hasn't changed the mindset?
I think it's changed the mindset of some of the families. Some of the families that were lukewarm before now are seeing, you saw the numbers, more than 1,000 cases in the United States when we thought we were going to get rid of this disease. And that has put fear into families. And so they are going out and making sure that their kids are vaccinated. We want to make sure, because this can affect pregnant women, but that pregnant women can't receive the vaccine. So if you're even thinking about getting pregnant, make sure you're fully vaccinated before you're exposed. I think it's just made it so that it's a more urgent need than ever before.
You know, Professor, we've talked obviously at length about this, and given in our region having 2 of the focal points of these outbreaks, I've had a lot of people, certainly from the scientific and medical community, and one cautioned me because I was livid about this, because to me, the audacity and sometimes arrogance of people, because they'll read a blog thinking they know more than the scientific and medical experts, as if the Pediatrics Association in the United States is going to willy-nilly make policy or suggestions out there, or the AMA, and I can go through all the alphabet soup with all the acronyms of the organizations that universally talk about the need and also the safety of vaccinations. One medical professional cautioned me against that and said, you know what, there shouldn't be an indictment for people that feel a certain way, but how can we just thumb our nose at science and fact and take a blogger's perspective and equate the two as if, it's some form of equivalency? That's the part that I've had trouble wrapping my arms around. And obviously, you're far more invested in it than I am, and you just came back from the CDC, in fact, on the subject. How do you combat the misinformation aspect?
I will tell you a couple personal stories. So I think that it's understandable for parents to be worried. They were given misinformation about that the vaccine causes autism. My own son is a severely autistic young man now. He's 26 and is nonverbal. And so when the allegations about MMR were first coming out, I obviously looked into it really hard. But as you said, the science is all showing safety of the vaccine. And that it's not just in the United States. that allegation that the people were throwing about that it's pharma. Well, this is around the world. We're seeing the same thing, that whether you're in Denmark or Sweden or the UK, it's safe everywhere. The World Health Organization has shown over and over again that this is a safe vaccine. So it's not like there's a group of parents who are going against pharma. No, a lot of parents really want the children in school to be protected. And the only way to do that is by having everybody in school be vaccinated.
Is this debate, if you want to call it that, limited to measles? And I asked this, Sharon, because I had a similar conversation with someone about the HPV vaccine, and with the father of 3 teenagers, it would be to me malpractice if I didn't look out for the safety and health of my kids. Are we expanding, and I'll use my words so you don't, this insane debate about vaccinating our children to now other things that we took just for granted? And I know HPV is relatively recent, the last decade or so. Is it just measles or more?
Well, I think that it's more. I think that because people have not seen these diseases in a really long time, that they've started to worry more about the vaccine. So, for example, I'm old enough that when I was a school kid, my mother was terrified of polio because there were neighborhood people who had polio. And so she would have stood in line all day and all night to get me that vaccine. Now, because polio vaccine has been so successful, we're not seeing polio. Similarly, when I was a young pediatrician, I saw Haemophilus influenza type B, a Hib disease, and it caused meningitis and overwhelming blood infection in children. And so I could give Hib vaccine to anybody because describing what I saw myself. But now we're not seeing a lot of these diseases unfortunately, until recently. And I think that you bring up HPV. That's a wonderful example. We didn't realize that there was a connection between this virus and cervical cancers, cancers of the mouth and throat, cancers of the penis, just horrible cancers that you definitely want to prevent in your child. We didn't realize the connection. Now we do, and we need to get the word out to everybody. This isn't a vaccine that's just optional just because it's not required for school. It's required if you want to prevent cancer in your kid. So I think that you're right that we need to have people understand why we're doing this. And it's harder to do that now because we're not used to seeing the outbreaks.
And I'll editorialize for a moment. When there's attacks on science and fact, whether it be global warming or now as it relates with certain diseases and outbreaks, there are consequences, and we're seeing that play out as well here. So, I just hope people use a little bit more caution in demonizing fact. But I appreciate, Sharon, the time you gave us today, and hopefully we're going to make some inroads here, and at least state legislatures seem to at least be taking some of the difficult decisions about making this not optional. But I certainly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to take us up and down the Eastern Corridor with stories that may have flown under the radar. Stay with us. We'll be right back.